I stared at the text message on my phone, my vision blurring as tears welled up in my eyes. The bustling office around me faded into a dull hum. How could this be happening? Abby, are you okay? My assistant, Sarah, touched my arm gently. You look like you've seen a ghost. I blinked, forcing myself back to reality. I'm fine. I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. Just give me a moment, please. As Sarah retreated, I read the message again, hoping I'd somehow misunderstood. But there it was, plain as day. I saw Mark with another woman at Café Noir. They were definitely more than friends. I'm so sorry, Abby. My best friend Jen had always been brutally honest. But this couldn't be true. Mark and I had been married for 10 years. We had our ups and downs, sure. But an affair? It seemed impossible. I grabbed my purse and rushed out of the office, ignoring the concerned looks from my colleagues. The crisp autumn air hit my face as I burst onto the sidewalk, my heels clicking furiously against the pavement. Café Noir was only a few blocks away. I had to see for myself. As I rounded the corner, my heart nearly stopped. There they were, sitting at an outdoor table, heads close together. Mark's hand rested on hers, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. I recognized her immediately. Lydia, the new marketing assistant at his firm. Young, beautiful, and apparently the object of my husband's affection. Before I could stop myself, I marched up to their table. Well, isn't this cozy? Mark's head snapped up, his face draining of color. Abby, what are you? Save it, I spat, my voice trembling with rage. I can't believe you, Mark. 10 years of marriage, and this is how you repay me? Lydia had the decency to look ashamed, quickly pulling her hand away from Mark's. I'm so sorry, I didn't. I held up a hand, silencing her. Don't, just don't. Mark stood up, reaching for me. Abby, please, let me explain. I stepped back, my eyes burning with unshed tears. Explain what, Mark? How you've been lying to me? How you've been sneaking around behind my back? People at nearby tables were staring now, but I couldn't bring myself to care. My entire world was crumbling around me, and all I could feel was a searing, white-hot anger. I trusted you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I gave you everything. Mark's face crumpled. I know. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Of course not. It never does it? I turned to leave, but Mark grabbed my arm. Abby, wait. Please, can we talk about this? I yanked my arm free, fixing him with a glare that could have melted steel. There's nothing to talk about. You've made your choice. As I walked away, I could hear Mark calling after me, but I didn't look back. My phone buzzed in my purse. Probably my mother, Myra, wondering why I'd left work so abruptly. I ignored it. I wandered aimlessly through the city streets, my mind reeling. How had I not seen this coming? Were there signs I'd missed? And what was I supposed to do now? As the sun began to set, I found myself in front of our apartment building. My hand shook as I inserted the key into the lock. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of home hitting me like a punch to the gut. Our wedding photo hung on the wall, mocking me with its frozen smiles and promises of forever. In a fit of rage, I grabbed it and hurled it across the room. The sound of shattering glass was oddly satisfying. I sank to the floor, finally allowing the tears to fall. My phone buzzed again, and this time I answered. Abby? My mother's concerned voice filled my ear. What's going on? Are you all right? I took a shaky breath. No, Mom, I'm not all right, Mark. He's been cheating on me. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. What can I do? I closed my eyes, suddenly feeling every bit of my 35 years. I don't know, Mom. I don't know what to do. I sat across from Mark at our kitchen table, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of coffee. 2 weeks had passed since I'd caught him with Lydia, and the pain still felt as fresh as ever. I want to make this work, Abby, Mark said, his voice low and pleading. Tell me what I can do to fix this. I sighed, feeling the weight of exhaustion settling over me. I don't know if you can fix this, Mark. You broke my trust. How am I supposed to move past that? Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. It was my mother, Myra. I answered, putting it on speaker. Abby, dear, Myra's voice filled the room. Have you two made any progress? I rolled my eyes. Mom, it's not that simple. Actually, Mark interrupted, I have an idea. What if we moved in with my family for a while? A change of scenery might do us good. I stared at him, incredulous. You can't be serious. It's not a bad idea, Myra chimed in. Sometimes being around family can help heal wounds. I felt cornered. Mom, you can't possibly think. Abby, Myra's tone turned stern. You've worked too hard on this marriage to throw it away. Give it a chance. I looked at Mark, who was watching me with hopeful eyes, Part of me wanted to scream, to tell them both they were crazy, but another part, a smaller, more desperate part, wondered if this might be our last chance. Fine, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. We'll try it, but I'm not making any promises. The relief on Mark's face was palpable. Thank you, Abby, you won't regret this. But as I hung up the phone and met Mark's gaze, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was making a terrible mistake. 2 days later, we were pulling up to Mark's family home, a sprawling Victorian house that always felt more like a museum than a home. Mark's sister Julia was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Well, well, she said as we got out of the car. Look who finally decided to grace us with their presence. I forced a smile. Hello, Julia. Thanks for having us. She sniffed, turning on her heel. Come on then, Mother's waiting inside. As we followed Julia into the house, I felt Mark's hand on the small of my back. It was meant to be comforting, I'm sure, but it only served to remind me of how he'd touched Lydia that day at the cafe. Mark's mother, Eleanor, greeted us in the foyer. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were calculating. Abby, dear, we're so glad you've decided to give Mark another chance. I bristled at her words. I haven't decided anything yet, Eleanor. We're just trying. Julia snorted. Trying? Is that what we're calling it now? Julia, Mark warned, but she just rolled her eyes. I'm just saying what we're all thinking, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. If Abby were really committed to this marriage, she wouldn't need to try. She'd just forgive and forget. I felt my temper flare. Excuse me. Your brother cheated on me. I think I'm entitled to some time to process that. The room fell silent. Eleanor cleared her throat. Perhaps we should all get settled in. Julia, why don't you show Abby to her room? Julia's eyes narrowed. Her room? I thought they'd be sharing. Mark stepped in. We thought it best to have separate rooms for now. Give each other some space. I could see the wheels turning in Julia's head, no doubt concocting some new way to make my life miserable. But she plastered on a fake smile and gestured for me to follow her. As we climbed the stairs, Julia's voice drifted back to me. You know, Abby, not everyone gets a second chance. You should be grateful Mark's willing to overlook your shortcomings. I stopped short. My shortcomings? What's that supposed to mean? She turned, her smile sharp as a knife. Oh, nothing. I just think it's admirable that Mark's willing to work things out, considering... Considering what? I demanded. Julia shrugged. Well, you're not exactly getting any younger, are you? And let's face it, your career has always come first. It's no wonder Mark felt neglected. I felt like I'd been slapped. Before I could respond, Julia continued up the stairs, leaving me standing there, my fists clenched at my sides. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about saving my marriage. This was war, and Julia had just fired the first shot. I woke up to the sound of hushed voices outside my door. Glancing at the clock, I saw it was barely 6 a.m. I crept closer, straining to hear. She doesn't belong here, Mark, Julia's voice hissed. Can't you see what she's doing to this family? Keep your voice down, Mark replied. Abby's trying, Julia. We all are. I heard Julia scoff. Trying? Please. She's just biding her time, waiting to take you for everything you've got. My blood boiled. How dare she? I flung open the door, startling them both. If anyone's trying to take something, it's you, Julia, I snapped. What's your problem with me? Julia's eyes narrowed. My problem? You're the one who can't let go of one little mistake. Little mistake? I laughed bitterly. Your brother cheated on me. Mark stepped between us. Please, both of you, calm down. I turned on him. And you? Are you going to let her talk to me like this? Before Mark could respond, Eleanor appeared at the end of the hallway. What's all this commotion? Julia immediately switched to a saccharine tone. Nothing, Mother. We were just discussing breakfast plans. I opened my mouth to protest, but Mark shot me a pleading look. I bit my tongue, seething. Eleanor smiled, oblivious to the tension. Wonderful. Abby, dear, why don't you help me in the kitchen? As I followed Eleanor downstairs, I could feel Julia's smug gaze burning into my back. In the kitchen, Eleanor handed me an apron. Now, Abby, I know you're not much of a cook, but I'm sure you can manage to set the table. I bristled at her condescending tone, but forced a smile. Of course, Eleanor. As I laid out plates and cutlery, Eleanor prattled on about family traditions and the importance of a woman's touch in the home. I tuned her out, focusing on not breaking the expensive china in my grip. Breakfast was a tense affair. Julia dominated the conversation, regaling everyone with stories of her successful career and social life. I pushed my food around my plate, feeling increasingly out of place. So, Abby, Julia said suddenly, her tone sickly sweet. How's work? Oh wait, I forgot, you're on a sabbatical, right? I gritted my teeth. It's called compassionate leave, Julia. Some companies actually care about their employees' well-being. Julia's smile didn't falter. Of course, it must be nice to have so much free time. Maybe you could use it to brush up on your domestic skills. Before I could retort, Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling slightly. Everything all right, dear? Eleanor asked. Mark nodded, a bit too quickly. Just work, if you'll excuse me. As he left the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I excused myself and followed him, finding him in the study, speaking in hushed tones. Lydia, you can't keep calling me, I heard him say. I told you, it's over. My heart stopped. Lydia? He was still in contact with her? Mark's voice dropped even lower. No, I haven't told her. Look, I need time, okay? Just give me some time. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. What hadn't he told me? What was he hiding? As I turned to leave, I bumped into a side table, knocking over a vase. The crash echoed through the house. Mark burst out of the study, his face a mix of guilt and surprise. Abby, I can explain. I held up a hand, fighting back tears. Save it, Mark. I've heard enough. Julia appeared in the doorway, her eyes gleaming with malicious curiosity. Oh my, what's happened now? I pushed past her, heading for the stairs. Ask your brother. I spat. As I reached my room, I heard Eleanor's voice floating up from below. Mark, darling, is everything all right? I slammed the door, muffling Mark's response. Leaning against it, I slid to the floor, my head in my hands. What was I doing here? This wasn't saving my marriage. This was slowly destroying what little self-respect I had left. A soft knock on the door startled me. Abby? It was Mark. Can we talk? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It was time for some answers, and I was going to get them, no matter the cost. I opened the door, my jaw set and eyes blazing. Mark stood there, looking like a deer caught in headlights. Abby, Save it, I cut him off. I want the truth, Mark. All of it. Now, he sighed, shoulders slumping, can we talk somewhere private? I nodded curtly and followed him to the study. As soon as the door closed, I rounded on him. You're still talking to Lydia? After everything? Mark ran a hand through his hair. It's not what you think. She's pregnant, Abby. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. What? I just found out, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do. I laughed bitterly. Oh, that's rich. You don't know what to do. How about not cheating on your wife in the first place? Before Mark could respond, the door burst open. Julia stood there, a look of mock concern on her face. Is everything okay? I heard raised voices. I glared at her. This is none of your business, Julia. She ignored me, turning to Mark. Brother dear, what's wrong? You look awful. Mark hesitated, glancing between us. I could see the moment he caved. Lydia's pregnant. He blurted out. Julia's eyes widened, then a slow smile spread across her face. Oh, Mark, what a predicament you found yourself in. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you actually enjoying this? I asked, incredulous. Julia shrugged. I'm just concerned for my brother's well-being, unlike some people who only seem to care about themselves. That was the last straw. Get out, I snarled. Both of you. Now. They left, Julia practically dragging Mark out. Then as soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a chair, my mind reeling. Hours later, I emerged from the study, emotionally drained but determined. I found Eleanor in the living room, arranging flowers. Ah, Abby, she said, not looking up. Be a dear and fetch the good china. We're having guests for dinner. I took a deep breath. Actually, Eleanor, I need to talk to you about something. She finally looked at me, her expression guarded. Oh? What about? I overheard Mark on the phone earlier, I began. His mistress is pregnant. Eleanor's face remained impassive. I see. And what do you plan to do about it? I blinked, taken aback by her lack of reaction. You knew? She sighed, setting down her flowers. Abby, dear, these things happen in marriages. The important thing is how we handle them. Handle them, I repeated, my voice rising. He cheated on me, Eleanor, and now there's a baby involved. Eleanor's eyes hardened. Lower your voice. We don't air our dirty laundry in public. Public? This is your home. Exactly, she snapped, and in this home we stand by family, no matter what. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So what? I'm just supposed to accept this? Pretend everything's fine? Eleanor stood, smoothing her skirt. You're supposed to be a supportive wife. Now about that china. No, I said firmly. I won't be fetching anything. I'm not your maid, Eleanor. Her eyes narrowed. Now listen here, young lady. While you're under my roof. While I'm under your roof, what? I challenged. You'll treat me like a servant? Expect me to turn a blind eye to your son's infidelity? Eleanor's face flushed with anger. If you can't behave like a proper wife and daughter-in-law, perhaps it's best you leave. Maybe I will, I shot back. Just then, Julia appeared in the doorway. Is everything all right? I heard shouting. Eleanor composed herself quickly. Everything's fine, dear. Abby was just offering to help with dinner preparations, weren't you, Abby? I opened my mouth to protest, but the look in Eleanor's eyes stopped me cold. It was a challenge, daring me to make a scene. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could walk away, admit defeat, and let them win, or I could stay and fight on their turf and by their rules. I forced a smile. Of course, Eleanor. I'd be happy to help. As I followed her to the kitchen, I caught Julia's smug grin. Little did they know, this was far from over. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them just how good I could be at playing dirty. I was elbow-deep in soapy water, scrubbing dishes from yet another elaborate family dinner, when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my banking app. Curious, I dried my hands and checked it. My heart nearly stopped. There was a transfer of $5,000 to an account I didn't recognize. I quickly scrolled through my recent transactions, my blood running cold as I spotted several similar transfers over the past few weeks. What the hell? I muttered, my mind racing. I hadn't made these transfers, which meant... The sound of laughter drifted in from the living room. I peered around the corner to see Julia, sprawled on the couch, showing off a pair of designer shoes to Eleanor. Aren't they divine, Mother? Julia cooed. I simply had to have them. Eleanor beamed. They're lovely, dear. You deserve to treat yourself. My eyes narrowed. The price tag on those shoes looked awfully familiar. I stormed into the living room, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. Julia, we need to talk, now. She looked up, annoyed. Can't you see I'm busy? Oh, I can see exactly what you've been busy with, I snapped, thrusting my phone in her face. Care to explain these transfers? Julia's face paled for a moment before she regained her composure. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb, I hissed. You've been stealing from me. Eleanor stood up, her face a mask of concern. Abby, dear, surely there's been some mistake. Julia would never... Save it, Eleanor, I cut her off. I want answers, and I want them now. Just then, Mark walked in. What's going on? I turned to him, my voice shaking with rage. Your sister has been helping herself to my money. Thousands of dollars, Mark. Mark looked bewildered. Julia, is this true? Julia's eyes filled with tears. Of course not. How could you even think that, Mark? After everything I've done for this family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Everything you've done? You mean like making my life a living hell since I got here? That's enough. Eleanor's voice cut through the tension. Abby, I won't have you making such wild accusations in my home. I gaped at her. Wild accusations? I have proof. Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Perhaps you've forgotten about these transfers. You have been under a lot of stress lately. I turned to Mark, desperate for support, but he just stood there, looking uncomfortable. Mark, I pleaded, you can't seriously believe this. He ran a hand through his hair. Abby, maybe we should discuss this privately. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. I felt like I was losing my mind. A misunderstanding? Your sister is a thief, and you're all just going to pretend it didn't happen. Julia stood up, her face a picture of injured innocence. I can't believe you'd stoop so low, Abby, making up lies just because you're jealous of my success. Jealous? I sputtered. Of what? Your ability to mooch off others? That's it, Eleanor snapped. Abby, I think you need to go to your room and calm down. We'll discuss this when you're in a more reasonable state of mind. I looked around the room, at the faces of my so-called family. Julia, smug and unrepentant, Eleanor, cold and dismissive, and Mark, weak and indecisive. In that moment, something inside me snapped. No, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I'm done being reasonable. I'm done playing by your rules. I turned to Julia, a slow smile spreading across my face. You want to play dirty? Fine. But remember, you started this war, and I intend to finish it. With that, I stormed out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. As I climbed the stairs to my room, my mind was already racing with plans. They thought they could walk all over me? They had no idea what I was capable of. It was time to show this family exactly who they were dealing with, and God help them when I did. I was in the middle of plotting my next move when I overheard Julia on the phone in the hallway. Her excited whispers piqued my curiosity. Yes, Jacob, I can't wait to tell everyone, she gushed. The ring is absolutely stunning. You shouldn't have spent so much. My ears perked up. Jacob? Ring? Was Julia getting engaged? I crept closer to the door, straining to hear more. Of course, darling. We'll announce it at the family dinner next week. It'll be perfect. As Julia's footsteps faded away, a plan began to form in my mind. This engagement could be the key to exposing Julia for who she really was. Over the next few days, I played the part of the dutiful sister-in-law, helping with dinner preparations and feigning excitement about Julia's surprise announcement. All the while, I was gathering evidence of her deceit. The night of the dinner arrived, and the house was buzzing with anticipation. I watched as Julia preened in front of the mirror, adjusting her designer dress, no doubt bought with my money. You look lovely, dear, Eleanor cooed. Jacob is a lucky man. I bit back a retort and plastered on a smile. Yes, he certainly is. As guests began to arrive, I slipped away to the study. I needed to make a crucial phone call. Myra, it's Abby. I need your help. My mother's concerned voice came through the line. Abby, what's wrong? I took a deep breath. I'm about to do something drastic, Mom. I need you to trust me. There was a pause. Abby, what are you planning? Justice, I said firmly. Can you be here in an hour? After getting Myra's assurance, I rejoined the party. Julia was in her element, flitting from guest to guest, her left hand conspicuously bare. I caught Mark's eye across the room, and he gave me a weak smile. My heart clenched. Despite everything, a part of me still loved him. Finally, Jacob arrived. He was tall, handsome, and clearly wealthy, exactly Julia's type. I watched as she fawned over him, playing the part of the perfect girlfriend. As dinner was served, Julia clinked her glass. Everyone, Jacob and I, have an announcement to make. The room fell silent as Julia held up her left hand, now adorned with a massive diamond ring. We're engaged. The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. I stood up, my heart pounding. It was now or never. I'd like to make a toast, I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. Julia's eyes narrowed, but she nodded graciously. I raised my glass. To Julia and Jacob, may your life together be as honest and transparent as Julia has always been. A ripple of confusion went through the room. Julia's smile faltered. In fact, I continued, I think it's only fair that Jacob knows exactly what kind of woman he's marrying. Abby, Mark warned, but I ignored him. I turned to Jacob. Did you know that your fiancé has been stealing money from me? Thousands of dollars used to fund her lavish lifestyle? The room fell deathly silent. Julia's face drained of color. That's ridiculous, she sputtered. You have no proof. Oh, but I do, I said, pulling out a stack of bank statements. And that's not all. Julia, why don't you tell everyone about the affair you've been having with Jacob's business partner? Jacob's head snapped towards Julia. What? Just then, the doorbell rang. Eleanor moved to answer it, but I beat her to it. I opened the door to reveal my mother, Myra, and a man I didn't recognize. Perfect timing, I said. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Detective Johnson. He's here to discuss the fraudulent activities happening in this house. Chaos erupted. Julia lunged at me, her face contorted with rage. You bitch! You've ruined everything. As Mark and Jacob pulled Julia away, I locked eyes with my mother. Her expression was a mix of shock and pride. In that moment, standing in the midst of the pandemonium I'd created, I felt a surge of triumph. The truth was finally out, and there was no going back. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of the storm. The room erupted into chaos. Julia's face contorted with rage as she lunged at me, her perfectly manicured nails barely missing my face. You vindictive bitch, she screamed. Mark and Jacob wrestled her away, but the damage was done. The facade of the perfect family had shattered. Detective Johnson stepped forward, his voice cutting through the pandemonium. Miss Julia, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning. Eleanor's shrill voice pierced the air. This is preposterous. I won't allow it. I turned to her, my voice steady despite my racing heart. You don't have a choice, Eleanor. The evidence is irrefutable. As the detective led Julia away, I caught sight of Jacob's devastated face. For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered all the pain and humiliation I'd endured, and my resolve hardened. Mark approached me, his face a mask of confusion and anger. Abby, how could you do this? She's my sister. I met his gaze unflinchingly. And I'm your wife, Mark. Or have you forgotten that in between your affair with Lydia and defending your thieving sister? His face paled. You know about Lydia? Oh, I know everything, I spat, including the fact that she's pregnant. A collective gasp went through the room. Eleanor swayed on her feet, looking as if she might faint. Myra stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on my shoulder. Abby, perhaps we should continue this discussion in private. But I was beyond caring about propriety or privacy. The dam had broken, and years of pent-up frustration and anger came pouring out. "No, Mom. I'm done hiding the truth. This family has been living a lie, and it's time everyone knew it." I turned to address the stunned guests. "Mark has been cheating on me with his colleague. Julia has been stealing from me to fund her lavish lifestyle, and Eleanor and Myra have been turning a blind eye to all of it." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, unexpectedly, a slow clap started from the back of the room. I turned to see Lydia, her pregnant belly visible beneath her fitted dress. "Bravo, Abby," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You've certainly put on quite a show." Mark's face drained of color. "Lydia, what are you doing here?" She sauntered forward, a wicked gleam in her eye. "I came to congratulate the happy couple, but it seems I've walked into something far more entertaining." I felt my control slipping. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. "You have no right to be here," I hissed. Lydia laughed. "Oh, but I think I do. After all, I'm carrying the next generation of this dysfunctional family." The room exploded into chaos once again. Accusations flew, tears were shed, and years of secrets came tumbling out. Through it all, I stood rooted to the spot, watching as the life I'd known crumbled around me. I'd wanted justice, revenge even, but this was destruction on a scale I hadn't anticipated. As the police arrived to sort out the mess, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Myra, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. "Abby," she said softly, "what happens now?" I looked around the room. At Mark's defeated slump, Eleanor's shocked tears, the gossiping guests. Then I met my mother's gaze. "Now," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "now we rebuild." But as the words left my mouth, I wondered if there was anything left to salvage from the wreckage of this night. I'd won the battle, but at what cost? As Detective Johnson approached me for a statement, I steeled myself. The war wasn't over yet, and I had a feeling the worst was yet to come. The days following Julia's disastrous engagement party were a blur of police statements, legal consultations, and tearful confrontations. I moved out of Mark's family home and into a small apartment, my mother insisting on staying with me. "You don't have to do this alone, Abby," Myra said, unpacking a box of kitchenware. I sighed, collapsing onto the couch. "I know, Mom, but I feel like I've torn this family apart." She sat beside me, taking my hand. "No, sweetheart, they did that themselves. You just exposed the truth." A week later, I found myself face to face with Mark in our lawyer's office. He looked haggard, the weight of his actions evident in the dark circles under his eyes. "Abby," he began, his voice hoarse, "I know I've hurt you beyond measure, but is there any chance we could—" I held up a hand, silencing him. "No, Mark, there's no going back, not after everything that's happened." He nodded, defeated. As we signed the divorce papers, I felt a mix of sadness and relief wash over me. It was really over. Outside the office, I bumped into Jacob. His once confident demeanor was gone, replaced by a haunted look. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "I never meant to hurt you." He shook his head. "Don't apologize. You saved me from a lifetime of deceit. Thank you." As he walked away, I realized that my actions, while painful, had freed more than just myself from Julia's web of lies. The final showdown came a month later, at Julia's trial. I sat in the courtroom, my heart pounding as she was led in, looking nothing like the polished socialite I'd known. Her eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of hatred and desperation. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. As the judge read out the charges, fraud, embezzlement, theft, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. Justice was finally being served. When it was my turn to testify, I stood tall, my voice steady as I recounted Julia's manipulations and thefts. I could feel Eleanor's glare burning into my back, but I didn't falter. "Miss Thompson," the prosecutor asked, "why did you wait so long to come forward?" I took a deep breath. I wanted to believe in family, in loyalty, but I realized that true loyalty means standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. As I stepped down, I caught sight of Lydia in the back of the courtroom, her hand resting on her swollen belly. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of respect in hers. We'd never be friends, but in that moment I felt we understood each other. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on all counts. As Julia was led away, I felt no joy, only a profound sense of closure. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a swarm of reporters, I felt my mother's arm around my shoulders. "You did it, Abby," she whispered. "You stood up for yourself." I turned to her, tears in my eyes. "We did it, Mom. I couldn't have done this without you." As we pushed through the crowd, I caught sight of Mark standing alone, watching us. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw regret, sorrow, and perhaps a glimmer of pride. I nodded to him once, then turned away. That chapter of my life was closed. Later that evening, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sun set over the city. My phone buzzed with a message from my old boss, offering me my job back. I smiled, feeling a surge of excitement for the first time in months. Tomorrow, I'd return to work. I'd rebuild my career, my life, my sense of self. As the last rays of sunlight faded, I raised a glass to the sky. Here's to new beginnings, I whispered. I'd been through hell, but I'd emerged stronger, wiser, and finally, truly free. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it head on. After all, I was Abby Thompson, and I was nobody's victim anymore.